of the most dynamic sectors of the society is usually the working class, and this is especially evident in former communist countries. The working class plays an important role in every country, and it is often known for protests and mass actions. With the emergence of the working class, there are often demands for the wage increases and improvements in the living conditions. Sometimes, however, demands can differ. One such incident in the Russian Federation, known as the Cradle of Labor Movement, is particularly noteworthy. Allegedly, Russian workers recently revolted with a different demand. Local sources claim that there was a massive press censorship in the news about the workers' protests, and these allegations are quite remarkable, and we will discuss them in the details later in this report. Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, is backed into a corner, and the whole balance has shifted in Russia. The details of the labor protests are also important. So let's take a closer look at the developments and analyze this situation more closely. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you our reports on Russia-Ukraine war, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our daily reports. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the videos. So let's start if you are ready, because the Pioneer reports. In the center of Europe, the war between Russia and Ukraine is in full swing, and calls for the peace in the region are going unanswered. Behind this is the potential for the Russian President Vladimir Putin to make a pace move that could jeopardize his political career. For Putin, the full incorporation of the Ukraine into Russia is critical to his future. However, if he fails to achieve this goal, Putin's political fate is in serious danger. Putin's political power and authority is largely based on Russia's strengthening and expansionism of its sphere of influence. Complete control of Ukraine is an important part of Putin's strategy, and it is seen as a critical step to consolidate his leadership positions. However, it is the fact that the military and political efforts to achieve this goal have been met with great resistance by the international community and the Ukrainian government. However, Putin's decision and move have dire consequences for the Russian Federation. Russia faces huge risks and has to deal with the heavy economic and social burdens of the war, and this is making Russian citizens anxious and angry, and the economic hardship is growing and clearly felt across the country. So, however, there is one group of people who are also suffering from the growing economic hardship and who are being severely affected: the workers. The effects of the war are deeply affecting the working class, and job losses, failing wages, and general economic uncertainty pose a serious threat to workers' livelihood. And this is leading to a great working class anger and frustration with Putin's policies. Russia's war has taken a heavy toll on the Russian workers and caused significant changes in their lives. Foremost among these changes has been the increase in the working hours of the Russian workers, and the rising cost of living due to the war also contributed to a significant decline in workers' living standards. Russia's war effort led to a significant increase in the production capacity, especially in the military sphere, and great emphasis was placed on the production activities to meet the growing needs of the Russian army. In addition, the economic effects of the war also had a negative impact on workers. The rising cost of living with the war reduced the purchasing power of the workers incoming and made it difficult for them to meet their basic needs. Increases in the prices of the food, fuel, and other basic materials strained workers' budget and lowered their living standards. In addition, the losses suffered by the Russian army also had an impact on workers. With increasing military needs, many people working in the manufacturing left the country, fearing that the Russian government would conscript them. And this led to a reduction in the workers' place and a distribution in the production processes, making it difficult for workers to maintain stable income and standard of living. As a result, the workers who have remained in Russia but are being squeezed by the growing burden have lost their stamina. This is why Russian workers recently organized an interesting action on the territory of the Russian Federation. The main topic of the action was the end of the war and the return home of the workers who were forcibly recruited for the war. Allegedly, a large group of workers took the streets and organized a march simultaneously in Moscow and St. Petersburg, as well as many other cities across the country. During this march, Russian police were on the scene and tried to stop the Russian workers at some points. However, during this intervention, the Russian police reported used violence and detained many workers. Several workers were reportedly injured in the brawl during the events, and one activist describing what happened said that the police used violence and detained many workers during the protest. In his statements, the Russian worker said, "Today we've gathered here to defend our right to draw attention to the difficult conditions we live. It is too expensive. Our quality of life has declined and we have no longer remained silent in the face of problems such as overtime. As workers, we oppose to discard of our basic human rights and our unfair working conditions. Many of our friends are on the front line and there are no guarantee that they will not send us too. Instead of waiting for here and making a decision, we wanted to organize the protests and make our demand known for Putin. But today, while we are experiencing our right to organize a peaceful protest, unfortunately the police intervened and detained many of our friends. This is an account on democratic rights and we don't accept this. We demand the immediate release of our friends who were detained while trying to make our voices heard peacefully. The rulers don't care about the ongoing war in Ukraine. None of them care about what is happening there, and all they think is what they will gain after the war. But at this rate, they won't win anything either. The war has gone on long enough, and our lives have been ruined by this war, and we cannot go on any longer. And we call out to the authorities, put up a stop to it. So it seems that the demands of the Russian workers are quite diverse and complex, and the Russian workers are in a difficult situation in every respect. But the Russian leadership don't seem to take this into an account. And what's more, Russian workers who try to speak out are met with harsh crackdowns. Russia seems to be going through a very difficult period from a psychological point of view. And for Russia to get through this period in a solid way, of course, the war must end. But it is hard to say that the head of the state of Russian Federation has such an agenda at the moment. So, what do you think? Do you think that the mass actions and protests in Russia will increase? How do you foresee these protests affecting the political and social situation in Russia? How do you think the increasing Russian military losses might affect the future of the situation? Could the protests in Russia have an impact on the country's domestic and foreign policy? How do you assess the Russian government's response to the protests, and what impact can working-class protests have on economic policies in Russia? I care a lot about your opinion, so please share it with us.